Karmelo Anthony sentenced to 35 years in prison for murder of Texas teen Austin Metcalf. Frisco, Texas. Karmelo Anthony has been sentenced to 35 years in prison after being convicted of murdering 17-year-old Austin Metcalf during a confrontation at a high school track meet in Frisco, Texas. The case, which drew national attention and sparked intense debate on social media, concluded with a jury finding Anthony guilty of murder and rejecting his claim that he acted in self-defense. The fatal incident occurred in April 2025 during a school track and field competition attended by students from several North Texas schools. What began as a brief dispute between two teenagers quickly escalated into a deadly encounter that shocked the local community and drew widespread media coverage. According to prosecutors, the confrontation took place near a team tent where students had gathered during rainy weather. Witnesses testified that an argument broke out between Anthony and Metcalf before the situation escalated. Prosecutors argued that Anthony pulled out a knife and stabbed Metcalf during the dispute. Students, coaches, and event staff immediately rushed to the scene as emergency responders were called. Despite efforts to save him, Metcalf later died from his injuries. News of the stabbing spread rapidly throughout the community, leaving classmates, teachers, and parents struggling to understand how a routine school sporting event had ended in tragedy. Law enforcement officers launched an immediate investigation. Detectives interviewed witnesses, gathered evidence, and reviewed available footage from the event. After examining the circumstances surrounding the incident, authorities charged Anthony with murder. Throughout the trial, prosecutors argued that Anthony intentionally used deadly force and that the evidence did not support a claim of self-defense. They presented testimony from eyewitnesses, investigators, and medical experts to support their case. Prosecutors maintained that Anthony's actions were unjustified and urged jurors to hold him accountable for Metcalf's death. Defense attorneys presented a different version of events. They argued that Anthony feared for his safety during the confrontation and believed he was facing an immediate threat. According to the defense, his actions should be viewed as self-defense rather than murder. Attorneys challenged witness accounts and questioned aspects of the prosecution's interpretation of the evidence. The trial became one of the most closely watched criminal cases in Texas, attracting significant public attention. Court proceedings were followed closely by local and national media outlets, while discussions about the case spread widely online. A central focus of the trial was whether Anthony's use of force was legally justified. Jurors were asked to consider witness testimony, physical evidence, and the legal standards surrounding self-defense claims. After hearing weeks of testimony and arguments from both sides, the jury began deliberations. Ultimately, jurors rejected the self-defense argument and found Anthony guilty of murder. The verdict prompted emotional reactions inside the courtroom. Members of the Metcalf family expressed relief that the jury had reached a decision they believed delivered justice for Austin. Supporters of Anthony were disappointed by the outcome and continued to argue that his actions had been misunderstood. Following the guilty verdict, the court moved to the sentencing phase of the trial. During this stage, family members of Austin Metcalf addressed the court and described the devastating impact of his death. Loved ones remembered Austin as a hardworking student-athlete with a bright future. Friends and relatives described him as kind, determined, and deeply loved by those around him. Family members spoke about the emotional pain of losing a son, brother, and friend, as well as the challenges of moving forward without him. Particularly emotional testimony focused on Austin's close relationship with his twin brother. Family members described the bond the two shared and the profound loss created by Austin's death. Prosecutors argued that a lengthy prison sentence was appropriate given the seriousness of the crime and the permanent loss suffered by the victim's family. Defense attorneys asked the court to consider Anthony's age and potential for rehabilitation, requesting leniency during sentencing. After considering arguments from both sides, the judge sentenced Anthony to 35 years in prison. The sentence means Anthony will spend decades behind bars unless future legal proceedings alter the outcome. His attorneys have already indicated that they intend to appeal the conviction and sentence, arguing that legal issues raised during the trial deserve further review. The appeals process could take years to resolve. The case generated significant public discussion throughout the investigation and trial. Social media users across the country debated issues related to self-defense laws, youth violence, and school safety. Supporters of both families organized fundraising campaigns and public statements, while legal experts frequently cautioned against drawing conclusions based solely on online information. Many observers viewed the case as a tragic example of how quickly conflicts can escalate. Community leaders and educators emphasized the importance of conflict resolution and highlighted the devastating consequences that can result from violence. For the Metcalf family, the verdict and sentence represent a measure of accountability, though they have acknowledged that no court decision can undo the loss of Austin. For Anthony and his family, the sentence marks the beginning of a lengthy prison term and an uncertain future. As the legal process moves into the appeals stage, the case continues to leave a lasting impact on the Frisco community. What began as an ordinary high school sporting event ended in a tragedy that changed multiple lives forever. More than a year later, residents continue to reflect on the events of that day and the lessons that can be learned from a confrontation that ended with irreversible consequences. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.